I'm going to let Danny intro this a little bit. There's certain things in life, like there's certain people you meet in life and you remember the first time you met that person. And sometimes you have a pleasant exchange. Sometimes it might be an awkward exchange. Well, we have a very, very unique first exchange. The first time I ever met this man was under very special circumstances.
Question from you, Blue. The final question from you, Red. Touch gloves, come out, ready to fight.
Big size disadvantage or advantage, but Joe, like we say, we're all the same height on the ground.
Yeah.
Advantages. Let's see how quick.
Oh my gosh! That was a knockout, almost a flash knockout. Feet.
Wow!
Sure.
Just
He's
stunned
gushing
him.
blood right now.
Gushing blood. Overhand right.
That was the fourth head kick that he's taken in this round. He finished the takedown, but he's in the guillotine now, and it's hard to catch your breath when you're bleeding through your nose. You can't. Oh, he's out.
He's out. Molina is somehow out, but watch out. DeMint has been putting on a show.
Looking for a straight ankle lock. Ryan just did that.
And he's looking to turn it around as well. Some great ground and pound, throwing some shots from above. Daniel Molina. Nice takedown by Molina.
Thinking that he's looking for another move. He's actually blocking Brian.
Molina changes it around to the mount. True Form Entertainment. This crowd is going crazy here.
Oh, nope.
Molina tries to get him down, now does.
Well, he's just kicking over. Molina trying to keep his weight down on that.
Molina just a wet blanket coming over, showing that 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu. He's got Manolo Hernandez, Gio Martinez in his corner. Oh, it's a party here tonight.
It looks like he's going to try that head kick again.
Oh, there we go.
He had success. Molina going right for the takedown right away. There's the single, using his leg to take him down. We could see Brian walk the fence all the way to...
Sneaking that arm around.
Looking to do a guillotine. One off.
DeMint trying to get up. He's got him in a guillotine, and that's deep.
This looks dangerous. Now he's got it. Let's see if we see another head kick, guys. We're seeing success with that left head kick. Sprawl.
Now DeMint's got to keep him away now. Nice! Kick to the head. Two of them by DeMint. A left, a right.
Wow.
And Molina with the takedown.
I see the crowd standing up on their feet, back up, sitting down, standing back up. This fight is action-packed. Going for a guillotine. Brian going for a guillotine. Knows he has to put everything into it, and he did. But Molina muscles out.
Right. Daniel Molina, Brian DeMint.
What a great song.
I do love this song. I love it.
Both fighters celebrating, walking around. They know that it's very important to posture. You don't want to, yeah, very much.
Winner by majority decision in the red corner, Danny Molina.
Brian and I, we fought MMA, and we obviously didn't know each other at the time, but I was offered a fight. I was told that it was a guy who was about my size, no big deal. And I learned pretty quickly that he's actually, what are you, 6'5"?
I'm 6'5", yep.
6'5". So, me being who I am, I took the fight. I stand 5'8" on a good day. So this guy's, I know I'm going into a fight and he's towering over me. But I also know, Brian, that were you struggling to fight? Like, was this this was your debut? This was my debut. But were you worried at all of somebody not wanting to fight you?
So that's a funny thing, man. I had probably 3 fights lined up before we got paired, and fights kept falling out. And I think what it was, and I don't know, you probably didn't hear anything about it because it sounds like you thought it was somebody your size. I mean, I'm a pretty tall guy. I'm a pretty generally a pretty big frame guy for people that don't, see me in person. Like right now I compete in jiu-jitsu. I compete at heavyweight in jiu-jitsu. Like, right. We fought at middleweight. We fought at middleweight,
but no, it was a joke. Like, yeah. I thought it was going to be someone my size, and then come to find out it wasn't. And I found out, I mean, I took the fight 8 weeks out, and I maybe found out like a couple days later, this guy's actually like 6'5", but I had a feeling that, I didn't want to back out because of that, Yeah. And we fought, and hold on, I gotta know, because we haven't talked about this, Brian. Coming out to the fight, what was going through your mind? What were you thinking?
So first thing, backstage, there's nothing like being backstage warming up for an MMA fight, because this was a really cool arena. It was Junior Seau Amphitheater, I think is what it's called, in Oceanside. And when you're backstage, so you're hitting the pads, you know, people are back there, they're sweating, the people are nervous, people are praying in the corner, people are whatever, they're trying to get their mind right.
Yeah.
And then you hear the fights going on. So you hear people cheering, you hear people what's probably knockouts or whatever it happens to be. So it's this intimidating thing. But I mean, since I was a kid, I grew up on WWE. I loved Hulk Hogan, I loved Ultimate Warrior, I loved all that stuff. And I always wanted, I mean, this has probably played a big factor into why I ever decided to get into MMA. I always wanted a walkout song. I wanted to come out to like a sick song. I wanted something cool. And so I was pumped up. I forget the exact song, but it was like this battle cry song. It was a dope song. And the DJ, they'd asked us to send in our songs. And I sent in my song, and I don't know if he couldn't find it. I don't know what happened. I don't know if he slipped him a 20 or what, but he had me come out. I'm pumped up. I'm ready to go. My song's about to hit. I hear my name announced, and I come out to a Justin Bieber song. And so my head goes from like, I'm into this, and it didn't get in my head in a negative way. It got me like fired up. I'm like, oh, this freaking guy. Because we were in enemy. I'm in enemy territory. You were a Marine, and there's a lot of Marines there. And so I'm looking around, and I'm seeing like some just like big old Marines in the audience and stuff. Yeah. So I mean, there's an intimidating factor there, but I felt confident, man. I didn't have a lot of jiu-jitsu, and this is part of my story that we can go into, but I didn't have a lot of jiu-jitsu. I was a striker. I've been striking, doing Muay Thai for 8 or 9 years at that point. I'd been training with like pretty good high-level kickboxers. I was doing MMA rounds, or excuse me, I was doing striking rounds with MMA guys. I'm in there sparring with Dan Henderson. I was like a sparring partner for him. He was going to fight John Jones. I was a sparring partner for John Jones. He ended up getting hurt and didn't do that. I sparred with like Dominic Reyes before he fought John Jones, before Vitor Belfort fights. I'm feeling confident because I'm in there, and like, you're not supposed to talk about what goes on in the training room, but I'm like doing pretty good in the training room with these guys. But it's striking rounds. It's not always MMA, right? And so I had a really high confidence, because I'm thinking I'm going with like UFC greats, in the training room, and here like some Marine's gonna come out. Yeah, right. Like, this is my house. That's what I'm thinking. And so yes, there's nerves for sure, but I was feeling confident. And I'm not gonna spoil. I'm gonna let you tell the next part. But you and I say like, okay, like fist up. I'm like, okay, we're gonna touch in the middle. And as soon as we walk out to the middle, I hear somebody from your side, I don't know if it's a coach or whatever, I hear somebody yell, shot, shot, shot. And then I hear my corner yell, don't touch gloves, don't touch gloves. And so from that moment on, like, I felt good. I felt like really in control up to that moment. And then from that moment on, like, it was just a blur the rest of the fight. And so, I mean, go ahead.
So we come out and we touch gloves. And as soon as we touch gloves, something hits me. I don't know. So I don't know if you've ever heard this story, Brian, but this is my perspective. We touched gloves, something hit me, and I just saw white, and I heard the crowd screaming. And it felt like I got hit and fell to my knees, and I was in your guillotine. I woke up in your guillotine. And then I popped out, and we finished the round, and I don't know what's going on really, like, I feel like I got banged up. The crowd's fired up, like, after the first round, I'm like, all right, that felt good. I felt like I held you down pretty good. I was working. And then my coach is like, don't touch gloves anymore. And I'm like, I'm not understanding what's going on, and I didn't understand until the fight was over. I knew something happened, but I didn't realize. They're like, dude, he like kicked you in the face, like straight off the glove touch. So the clip's out there, and I love that slow-mo. Oh, every time you share that slow-mo, I love it. Like, wow. Listen, without the shin guards, Brian, that would have been so beautiful. It would have been one of the prettiest knockouts probably ever. I would have gone down like a ton of bricks. Thank God for the shin guards.
Hey, man. Well, I appreciate you saying that. I don't know. I mean, I hit you a few other times. I mean, it's fire. It was a good fight. I mean, everybody, like, people were coming up, and I'm sure you ended up, spoiler alert, winning the fight. And And I had people come up and congratulating me and saying, wow, man, you know what? That was a close fight. Like, you know, people were just really jacked. Cause I don't know if I think they had some good fights up to that point, but the promoter came up, he's like, man, that was fight of the night already, you know, that type of thing. And you know, it was really exciting. But the funny thing is I share that clip maybe every couple of years or something like that of the head kick. Cause it just looks cool on camera.
It does, dude. It's great.
I don't share the rest of the fight. I'll tell people freely. I'm like, yeah, and so it actually is that moment. And we talked about this. We kind of talked about this through either Facebook or Instagram recently. But that moment that night was like a really good experience for me. I lost the fight. So I won the first round. I think the judges, you know, gave me the first round. And then the second round, I came out and part of it too, what I remember is after I hit you, and I remember hearing, again, I'm thinking I'm in Marine territory. Marines are kind of, you know, jaw jacking at me. And the crowd went silent. So like everybody went silent. And so like a baseball player trying to swing for home runs, like that was very real. Cause I remember thinking like, oh, these guys made fun of me. Like when I'm coming out, like they made me walk out to the Justin Bieber music. So I'm in the corner, like hungry. I'm feeling good and confident. And so I remember thinking like, oh, like that last thing like quieted the crowd. This next thing's going to. So I don't know if you remember watching the second round back, but I specifically remember in my corner, I'm gonna come out, I'm gonna walk across the ring, and I'm gonna do a turning side kick. I'm gonna try and hit him in the liver and end the fight on a body shot. Like I'm hitting people with that in practice all the time. I'm like sniping people with it. I come out, I turning side kick, completely miss, you double leg me, and then the fight from there is just all you. You're just on top. I think in the third round, you take me down a few times. I might have gotten back up, and there was a couple scrambles, but it was really
in the video though. In the video, that's my favorite, that second round. But in the video, when I get the takedown, you can hear the crowd like, oh, you know, you can hear them, you know, it's like, God, you know, man. That's cool. I didn't look at it like that. I didn't feel like I had hometown presence, but now that you explain it, like from your perspective, I definitely did. You're coming from Temecula and stuff. Like I didn't even look at it like that. And I had nothing to do with your theme music being Justin Bieber. I swear to God. I swear to God. I'm sorry about that.
It's all right, man. It was my is all I ever wanted since I was a little boy, and they took it from me. No, but no. So
you just wanted your walkout.
Having said all that, that night was really important. And so when I share that clip, I share the part that's cool because I want to look cool in front of my friends. Like, okay, I had a fight and, boom, head kick. But then I like to share with people, man, like I'm glad, like the path I believe that God had me on in my life was I needed to be humbled in that moment, man. I was so confident and I needed to learn just in my martial arts journey. I had trained some jiu-jitsu and I had trained some grappling and stuff like that, just a little bit to be, kind of proficient in MMA. But you're a very good grappler. Were you a purple belt at the time?
Yeah.
Are you a black belt now, or where are you at?
No, man. I haven't trained enough, man. Believe it or not, I'm still a purple belt.
Still a purple belt. So you've been a purple belt for you're gonna be, 7-8 years. That's like Joe Rogan status.
Yeah, I know. I'm like a lifelong purple belt. It's funny because when I roll with like brown belts, they're like, "What the hell?" I mean, but it's cool. Coming from 10th Planet also, because I don't know if you know this, but I started with Team Quest when there was the Team Quest Oceanside, Brian Harper.
Yeah.
So I trained under Brian Harper in the beginning.
Okay.
So with like Jesse Taylor was my wrestling coach.
Wow.
Do you remember Marty Davila?
No, I never trained with Marty.
Little Peruvian dude?
No.
Oh, okay. He was he was like
Chris Herrera. Was he down there?
Chris Herrera, yeah. And I actually the night that I got offered your fight, I was training with Chris because he was already on the card, and I was helping him train for his fight. And that's when the promoter saw me and was like, "Oh, do you?" And like he like had kind of sold me on it.
That's cool.
Yeah, but yeah, we come from like the same lineage. But at 10th Planet, once I got to 10th Planet, the belts, I don't know. It's cool. It means a lot, but we don't wear them there as much. And
no, that's great. Well, but yeah, I mean, so that was where I really fell in love with jiu-jitsu. I walked into that fight. I mean, it was proven in UFC 1 that the striker like we walk in thinking, oh, if somebody's going to take me down, I'm just going to knee him in the head. Like that's what every striker thinks. And it's just not easy to do. You might land that 1 in 100 times, and you have to be a really good striker in order to land that on even an above average grappler. But you're a really good grappler. You're strong, technical, all those things. I mean, that was one of the other things I love looking at the pictures from that night, because your corner, man, you had a stacked corner. You had Manolo in there. You had the boogeyman in the corner. You had Gio. Yeah, I mean, you come from 10th Planet. Like that's a very prestigious gym.
But you too, you had Sam Alvey in the corner.
Yeah. And, I had a few guys that in the corner. I had well, no, he wasn't in my corner, but he was probably cheering for all of us. It was Sokaju was there.
Oh I did see Sokaju.
I trained with him a lot. I trained with him a lot before the fight. So yeah, man, I mean, so it was exactly what I needed, because my purpose on this planet is not to be a fighter. It's not to be a warrior. I needed that. I think men need to I think training is one of the greatest things in the world. But not everybody's going to be out there on the front line. But for my business acumen, for my, this venture that I've been on for the last 10 years in Bitcoin, that type of like just ability to go in there and go into the fire, win, lose or draw. And I mean, neither one of us quit, right? Like we both went in there and beat the crap out of each other. And I mean, you really, those second 2 rounds dominated, but like, in my head, I kept pushing to try and come back.
Oh, you did, man. I couldn't submit you at all. I was trying to finish it. I knew it was going to be close that first round. I couldn't submit you for anything.
What? So yeah, I mean, was that weird being, because I remember distinctly remembering this feels a lot slipperier than when I normally train, because we train no gi and stuff like that, but training shirtless isn't something we do a lot. Yeah. And I remember the lights being really hot, so we're just like, I think that helped. I didn't grease up for that fight, but I felt pretty slippery.
Yeah. Well, I think that you did a good job defending, man. I can't use slippery as an excuse. I tried everything. I mean, if you watch it, I was trying to mount you. I couldn't finish you on ground and pound, and then I'd go for submissions, and yeah. Well, dang, man. I feel the same way though, brother. I feel like I was training for so long. I grew up wrestling and boxing, and then when I came back from Afghanistan, I said, I want to try this MMA thing. And like, I put off fights all the time. I always had excuses, and I decided to do it. And I thought I was going to pursue it full time. And, but what's cool about our fight is it was like very high level. It was at a venue that's probably the only one they've ever done there.
Yeah.
They haven't done that again at Oceanside. It was on the beach. It was outside. People were screaming. We had to get a police escort from the locker room.
That's right. Yeah.
To the back of the entrance area to come out. Like, it was very, very high level. And I felt this, like, I don't miss fighting like that. I feel like exactly how you explained that. I got it out of my system. And like, it was fun, man. I had a great time. It was cool, but definitely on trying to move on to bigger and better things. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, I think we'll always have that bond. We'll always have that moment that's shared. And so thank you, brother. I appreciate you sharing that night with me. And we played that part in each other's lives, man. I think that, one of the things we talked about just, kind of in closing on this is that like you said, you got kicked seconds into the fight, didn't really know what happened. You're just like, wake up and you're in a chokehold and your training takes over, right? Like you're just, your autonomic services take over and you fight through it. And I imagine that was just a really, really important moment in your life as well, where for me, that fight was about humility, recognizing that there's more to the game, there's more elements, there's more techniques that I need to learn and develop and that sort of thing. But for you, what did that mean to you as far as, just the process of that fight, of you starting and then having to make up some ground coming from behind really early on?
Man, I got, after the first round, I didn't really know what was going on. They were like, don't touch gloves. And I just came out and I remember thinking like, I gotta fucking take him down. That's it. I just remember thinking that. And You know, I feel like everything that I did, I executed, and it worked in my favor. You know, that spinning kick could have got me. You know, that head kick could have got me. It could have been. I could have been a little slower in my get up, and then it would have been over. I mean, if you look at the video, the referee at the time was running over. He was gonna stop it. You know, I just like rolled up, and I don't remember any of that. I don't
Dude, that's
remember any of
wild.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. But yeah, no, man, I think it's cool that that's where we started, and we kind of followed each other on social
Mhm.
media through it all. And then, um, you know, I got out of the Marine Corps, and I put on a bunch of weight and stuff, and I was going to school and super stressed, and then got my life together and started reading, and I picked up this Bitcoin book, and it was sitting on my nightstand. I don't know, 4 months, 5 months. You know, I bought it. I'm one of those people. I'll buy books. Oh, this is cool, and then it'll sit on my shelf for
For
how
sure.
long?
Yeah.
And but it was sitting on my desk, and one day I saw that you posted about your book, and I had no idea that, you know, you're on this journey. And you know, I've heard a lot of things about Bitcoin, but I don't really know anything. I didn't really understand anything about it. And um, the thing that made me buy the book, the truth, is that I want to be on the next wave, whatever it is. And Bitcoin is something that is huge right now. And I realized that I didn't understand. So when I started reading this book, I was probably only like on chapter 2 when I reached out to you about it. It was like, hey, I got some questions, you know. Um, and yeah, I'm really intrigued. You know what it is for me is I don't I don't understand why it's such a simple concept of what it is. I think a lot of people are overthinking it.
Mm.
You know, I mean, you know, it's a set of numbers that comes through the blockchain, and the blockchain is the ledger that keeps account of everything. And what really impresses me is the concept of what can the blockchain do in the future? How else can that technology help out in things like making elections more secure? Where's this technology going to go? You know, and I guess that's the one thing that I'm really intrigued by, you know. And I know that, like, when people talk cryptocurrency, you know, or when people talk Bitcoin, most people don't understand the difference between cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. You know, a lot of people just they think it's the same, you know.
Mhm.
And I understand that Bitcoin is kind of like the beginning of it all,
Mhm.
you know. And but I guess one of my questions that I have for you that I was curious about is, are there companies that are looking into that blockchain technology and using it for different things?
Yeah. I mean, there's billions of dollars from companies, from venture capital firms, from blockchain projects that are starting up all over the place. I mean, there's, you know, if you go on Coin Market Cap, which is the site where you can look up most of the cryptocurrencies that are out there, there's like 20,000 something cryptocurrencies in the world. 99.999% of them are just a waste of time. It's white noise. But there are some projects out there that are trying to accomplish something novel. Like you brought up elections. There's a project out there, and I don't advocate for any altcoins or anything like that. I'm a kind of a Bitcoin purist.
Right,
There's
right.
a term called Bitcoin maximalism where like it's like Bitcoin only, and they don't really pay much attention. They're kind of really like mean and kind of they have a grudge towards altcoins. I don't have a grudge towards altcoins. There's Bitcoin and there's altcoins, which is everything else. Every you know, all the 19,000 other coins are considered altcoins. But I think the way I look at it, like you said, is what are the future applications of the blockchain? Bitcoin is the most distributed. It's the most secure. Like if you're going to build the world's financial system on a network, it needs to be really, really, really secure. Bitcoin's the most secure computing network in the history of the world. Like you cannot hack it. Like theoretically,
Right.
there's a way to do it. If you can take over people, it's called a 51% attack. So you need to take over 51% or more.
51 of the mining companies.
Yeah. And so, but it's more than that. You really, in order to change blocks in the blockchain or to change future blocks, you would need something like 80 to 90% of it. So we call it a 51% attack just to help kind of, illustrate the example of it. By all intents and purposes, to get your hands on enough microchips, which there's already, circuit shortages as we speak right now. But if you were to get your hands on enough computing power, it would just be impossible. You can't do it. Like even if you took all the chips in the world that were available, you wouldn't have enough computing power. So even if China and US and Russia, who are all enemies, teamed up together, they couldn't do it
to take down Bitcoin.
Couldn't do it. It's just too big and too distributed. So that's to say that if you want sound money, if you want a really good system for money, Bitcoin's the way you go. So in a context where we're talking about inflation and stuff like that, we're in a world where every time you turn on the news, inflation this, inflation that. If you want sound money, Bitcoin's where you really need to focus. But to your point, there's interesting things, right? Like what does an immutable ledger bring to the table? What does a transparent ledger bring to the table? And like I said, or like you said, voting is kind of like one of those prime things that the blockchain might have a really good solution for. I mean, imagine how cool it would be. People don't trust the election systems right now. When Trump won, Hillary said it was rigged. When Trump wins, or when Biden wins, then the right says that it's rigged. So both sides are going to say it's rigged, and they're probably right. Like both sides are probably right. I think everybody's cheating. Like if you're running for president and you're not cheating, like you're probably not trying hard enough. It's probably the way it works. But think of it. Like think if you could cast your vote. Like I cast my vote, and all I can see if I scan the little QR code is to see if it was received. It doesn't show, like I can't see a receipt of who I voted for or when I voted or any of that kind of stuff. Imagine if there's a ledger, like imagine a giant Excel spreadsheet that has track of everything you voted for, everybody you voted for.
But nobody can touch it.
But nobody can touch it. Nobody can change it. And nobody knows that your vote was from you. You would be encrypted. So you would know that that's your identifier. And so you couldn't, one of your employers couldn't go and look and see who you voted for and then fire you because they don't like who you voted for. It would be your secret identity, but it's transparent. You can go on the ledger and be like, okay, my vote counted for these candidates or these propositions and that sort of thing. That would be very transparent. It'd be immutable. It'd be unchangeable. And so, yes. Now the problem is these projects like Civic, which I think that these projects need to exist. They need to be developed. I look at them like research and development, you kind of like the research and development arm for Bitcoin. Because if they develop a ledger, if they develop the functionality for a really good blockchain-based voting system, the Bitcoin developers can build that on top of Bitcoin. They can make a Civic layer to the Bitcoin ledger. And then you're harnessing Bitcoin's decentralization, Bitcoin's security, because if you have a really small blockchain, it's really easy to hack. If you don't have a lot of computing power behind it, me and you could start a blockchain tonight. Bitcoin's open source software. We could start Molina Coin tonight, and it could have all the properties of, the code of the Bitcoin network, because again, it's open source software. It's out there for everybody to do. That's why there's 20,000 cryptocurrencies out there. They just copy the source code and then they say, oh, we've got a new coin. The problem is they don't have the network effect. Network effect is something really, really important. And let me try to illustrate that as quickly as possible. Imagine we had a telephone network, but only you had a phone. Nobody else had a phone. How valuable is that telecommunications network? It has zero value because you have no connections, right? You have the technology, cool, the technology works, but it has no value to me. Now, imagine your mom gets a phone. Well, now it has some value to you because you can maintain familial connections, right? Like if I want to get in touch with my mom, it has some value. Now imagine one more person gets added, say a business associate. Cool. Now there's a family component. Now there's a business component. It's every node I add to this network, it becomes more and more valuable.
Yeah.
Small blockchains don't have a very big network effect. They don't have a lot of people interacting with it, and therefore it's not very valuable. Bitcoin, it's huge, has hundreds of millions of people on that. And so it not only decentralizes it, but it makes the network more and more valuable because there's more people interacting with it. There's more connections. Like, do I want to, interact with this person for a business transaction? Do I want to interact with this, do I want to interact with my kids. Like I tip my kids with Bitcoin. So my kids they have Bitcoin wallets, so I can interact with my kids on Bitcoin, and all sorts of things. So there's some really interesting components. Yes, there's blockchain projects out there doing things. Like there's things, I don't know if you're probably familiar with Ethereum to some degree.
Right.
Ethereum is kind of like if Bitcoin's Apple Pay, Ethereum's like the app store. Like if you want a decentralized application, those things are getting built on top of Ethereum. Unfortunately, the consensus mechanisms, the things that validate transactions on other blockchains, they have some inherent weaknesses that Bitcoin doesn't have. And so again, I'm not anti-Ethereum, I'm not anti-altcoin. I just see them as kind of like a means to an end. Like when those other blockchains develop something that's kind of workable, then it'll probably get added to Bitcoin. So sorry, I always kind of bring everything back to Bitcoin, but this is a really, really big kind of topic right now. As you're, in the news, we're hearing about exchanges collapsing, coins collapsing, and kind of, there's a lot of scam projects out there. So I think it's really important for people to understand that there are financial risks associated with investing in crypto, things that are outside of Bitcoin. Because I was the chief marketing officer for a blockchain project. It was called Athenium for 3 years, head of marketing. And we had a good team, honest team and stuff like that. But like you see just some of the inherent weaknesses we had people pouring in lots of money into the project just on speculation. Like we were in the very early stages of developing this blockchain, and people were treating it as though we had like a workable product and stuff like that. So it's just important to, and I'm thinking, man, our blockchain, we have a lot of control over this. Like, thank God we were some honest people, because if we wanted to, we could have stolen a lot of users' funds. Like people thought, oh, it's a blockchain project, that means it's decentralized. No, it's like there was 4 of us, there was 4 different nodes, and it was highly centralized. So projects have to start off kind of centralized, and then over time they can become a little bit more decentralized. But Bitcoin it's the oldest one. It has the longest head start, so that's why it's become the most decentralized. The example I use for this is like after the Revolutionary War, George Washington, right? The founding fathers was very centralized in terms of power. George Washington was offered kingship, right? Or to be dictator. He was offered to be in charge of the country, kind of a monarch figure. But he said, no, we're going to have a constitutional republic. Yes, we're very centralized in terms of our power right now, but we're going to make it decentralized over time. And so then we got the checks and balances system, the judiciary, the legislative, the executive branches. And so the power was distributed. That's kind of like a good blockchain. A good blockchain will fight for that decentralization, but unfortunately, most blockchains aren't concerned about that. They're just concerned about, kind of speculating on price and things like that.
I see. So one question I had for you was, where do you see, okay, so like what's the general consensus of the people who have a heavy hand in Bitcoin? What's the goal? What's the foreseeable future?
Yeah. So I was just at a big Bitcoin conference last Thursday and Friday. It was called Pacific Bitcoin. So it was cool, man. A lot of the authors that I've read, just the podcasts I listened to, was just like the who's who of Bitcoin at this conference. And these people, it's a bull market right now. The prices are down. These people are excited. Like they're really pumped. And I was expecting to see people kind of down, like if you were to go to, there's conferences for other cryptocurrencies, and I've been to some of those. If the price is down when you go to a crypto conference, people are depressed because what they're focused on is the price. With Bitcoin, people understand. They get excited when the price goes up, for sure. Everybody wants to have more buying power. But people that are in Bitcoin, they kind of have a philosophical belief behind them as well. It's not just like, oh, this is an interesting new technology. In Bitcoin, we really believe that what we have is sound money. Like I released a video the other day. I actually don't even think Bitcoin's speculative. It's kind of it sounds crazy because you hear people say Bitcoin's speculative all the time. I don't think Bitcoin's speculative at all, because the reason why I buy it is that it has all the qualities of sound money. And like, what is sound money? Sound money is money that's durable, it's divisible, it's fungible. It had, there's like 8 qualities to sound money, but one of the most important qualities is limited in supply. Like Bitcoin will only ever have 21 million coins. And when you compare that to the US dollar, that has an infinite supply, right? Like during the pandemic, the Federal Reserve Chairman, when people were freaking out, like, hey, are you going to be able to stimulate the economy because everything's shut down? He said, oh, don't even worry about it. We don't even have to print money. Like, I can just add $1 trillion with a few strokes of a key. And it's just, they can type money into existence, not even print it into existence. They can just type it into existence. And so when you have something that's scarce, and then we have something, you know, and you're dividing that by something that's infinite, like the price of Bitcoin, it has so much room to grow. And again, what we're buying it for isn't because, you know, I hope that someday it gets new features. The features, the censorship resistance, the immutability, the distributed ledger, all those things, Bitcoin already has those qualities. And so I'm buying it for what it already has. So a lot of Bitcoiners are very optimistic because they're just like gold bugs. Like, they're people that are really into gold too. They're like, hey, I'm buying this thing because it helps prevent like government censorship. It helps prevent like if PayPal, you know, fines me $2,500, which that was a news story like a month ago, you know, PayPal could fine you $2,500 for misinformation, right? If my banking institutions start cracking down on me for things that I post about, I can still transact. Another conference I went to about a month and a half ago was this thing called the Beef Initiative. I flew out to Georgia, and these ranchers, these like 60-year-old ranchers that have just been doing good old boy stuff for the last 50 or whatever years, they're starting to accept Bitcoin for beef because they're getting cracked down on by the FDA because they're regenerative farmers. They're not doing like big ag. They're not spraying their food with pesticides and all this stuff that's considered like regulation safe. They're growing organic foods and stuff like that, and they're getting in, you know, some hot water with the FDA. They're starting to sell their beef for Bitcoin. And these, you know, 60-year-old ranchers are wanting to find out, like, how do I set up a Bitcoin wallet and all that kind of stuff. So we were flying out there to educate these people. I think COVID put freedom and the ability, like the freedom to be able to have freedom of speech and the freedom to transact. I think that put people's minds front and center on like the need for liberty. And so I think that's where Bitcoin's going. It's getting more and more adoption every day, because there's countries all over the world where there's dictators that are trying to steal people's money, and Bitcoin's preventing that. There's people all over the world who have, you know, we have 10% inflation here in the United States. Like, they have 100% inflation in some of these countries, and Bitcoin is preserving their wealth or growing their wealth in those countries. So it's happening every day. It's happening more and more. And so, I mean, that's why Bitcoiners are really optimistic. We're a really optimistic bunch, because we see a crisis happening in real time. It's something that's been going on for a long time, but it's kind of coming to a head right now. And Bitcoiners, we think that we already have the solution. So we try, you know, sometimes we sound doom and gloom because we're talking about how bad the Federal Reserve System is, but I like to make sure we're always being optimistic, because we already have the fix. Like, I hate when somebody just complains about something and they don't put forward a solution. But with Bitcoin, we're complaining about the problem, but we're also saying we have the solution to it too.
Yeah. I like it. I mean, that's one thing that I also appreciate about it's the Promise of Bitcoin is the book. I don't know if you're familiar with it. But that's what they open up with, is they talk about the American economy and the history of the dollar. And I highlight interesting things. And one of the things that really I found interesting was, he says like hundreds of years before Christopher Columbus even hit North America, China had a system very similar to the dollar value that we have now, the dollar system, our economy right now. And it's already failed. And how many times has our economy failed and failed and failed and failed? And we just accept it as like, oh, that's normal, you know. That's just what happens, you know. And I believe that for sure, and I see that in Bitcoin. But I guess the one thing that makes me okay, so for instance, I don't have any stock or investment. I don't own any Bitcoin, nothing like that, right? And what, it's up to like 20 grand right now?
It's taking a dip this week. I think it's in like the 16s, you know, as of today. Yeah.
So like, you know, with today's economy, you know, a lot of people don't have 16 grand on hand. So like, what would you recommend to like those people, right? It's like, if they want to get on, what do you think they should focus on or look at or look to maybe work up to?
Yeah, man. That's a great question. It really is, because I think that's the thing that's prohibitive to people. First of all, Bitcoin, you don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. People can buy a fraction of a Bitcoin. So for anybody that's listening that thinks like, oh yeah, I don't have 16 grand, I can't buy a whole Bitcoin. You can buy $10 worth of Bitcoin. You can buy 5 cents worth of Bitcoin. Bitcoin's really, really divisible. So whereas a US dollar is divisible down to 0.01, which is a penny, Bitcoin's divisible down to 0.008 decimal places. So you can go 7 zeros and a 1. And you can, so I think right now let me see, like with, I'll pull it up right now, how much a dollar will buy you in sats, but the smallest unit of Bitcoin is called a Satoshi. The creator of Bitcoin's named Satoshi Nakamoto. And so they named the smallest unit called a Satoshi. And so like, for example, $1 right now, for $1, you can get 5,905 sats. So if people, go out and they venture out into other altcoins and they're like, hey, I bought a bunch of Dogecoin. I bought a bunch of Dogecoin for $10, because people like this idea of having a lot of something. Unfortunately, we can go into it too later, but like, I think a lot of people don't understand market capitalization. So Dogecoin has billions and billions of coins. You're getting a really small piece of the pie. It'd be like if like Bitcoin's a pizza, and it's only cut up into 4 slices, and then Dogecoin's a pizza and it's cut up into like 3,000 slices. You know what I'm saying? Like you're like, dude, I got so many slices, but you have a bunch of these like microscopic slices. It's still not, your 1,000 slices isn't as big as my quarter of a slice here, that sort of thing. So it's really important to think in terms of, the market capitalization. And so we can go into that, but it just, the simple equation for what market cap is, or market capitalization, it's what's the price of an individual coin times how many coins are in existence. So Bitcoin is 16,500 times, I think there's 19 million in existence today. So it gives you that market capitalization. With Dogecoin, I don't know what Dogecoin's at. We'll say it's $1 per coin, but there might be, 20 billion coins of Dogecoin. There's just, you're getting, when you buy $1 of Bitcoin, it's going further than buying $1 of Dogecoin, even though you're getting more. You're getting
more of Doge.
It feels like you're getting more of the coins. So it's really important for people to reprogram with Bitcoin. Think in terms of Satoshis. If you want a lot if you want a lot of stuff, it can be depressing when you buy $100 worth of Bitcoin and you're like, oh, I only have 0.00001 Bitcoin. Like that's not exciting. But if you think, wow, I have 59,000 sats, that's a little bit more satisfying. And your wallet looks that way. So most Bitcoin wallets, you can have it denominated in sats. So you open your wallet and you're like, dude, I only bought a few dollars worth of Bitcoin, but look, I've got 100,000 sats. Like you feel rich. And that's the thing is, over time, where this is going, and I make a case for this in my book. So the book's called Bitcoin Evangelism. I think a lot of the viewers have seen it.
Yeah,
but
it's next. It's next.
This is the lead in. But where we're going with Bitcoin, I believe that you're going to see parity between the penny and the Satoshi. So if that happens, if a Satoshi equals a penny, you're talking about like every dollar you're buying right now is going to equate to like $59 in the not too distant future. So if I can turn every dollar into, increase the buying power by 59x, like that's insane. And so going back to this, like what should people's strategy be? The strategy is simple. It's called dollar cost averaging. I have so many people that tell me like, hey, I read your book, I'm ready to jump in. And for some reason, I think they skipped the part about dollar cost averaging because I talk about this in the book, but people say like, I'm pumped. And maybe they read it, but people get excited. They're like, hey, I've got $5,000. Like, what do I do with my money? Like, I'm ready to jump into Bitcoin. I say, don't spend $5,000 today. Like take maybe $500 and buy $500 every 2 weeks until you spend your $5,000.
I think I read somewhere that said you shouldn't invest more than 1% of your worth.
That's another metric you can justify it by. The way I say it is and I think that's good sound advice for somebody that is looking for kind of like a framework for how they're going to approach investing. I tell people all the time, invest as much of a percentage as you understand. So if you have a 1% understanding of Bitcoin, invest 1%. If you have a 20% understanding, then maybe invest a little bit more, that sort of thing. But the safest way to go into it is by dollar cost averaging. So if you have $5,000, don't buy $5,000 worth of Bitcoin today. Buy $100 worth of Bitcoin every week until you spend that $5,000, or buy $500 every other week or something like that. The reason being is because the Bitcoin price is volatile. Sometimes you're going to buy high,
Right.
sometimes you're going to buy low, but over the course of that, however many 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 6 months, or whatever that you're buying, you're going to get a nice average price. And the best thing you can do is just consistently do that. I mean, it doesn't need to stop. You don't need to say, oh, I'm only going to buy $5,000. I think the best thing you can do, figure out what works into your monthly cash flow budget. Like, hey, I have an extra $80 at the end of the month that I don't need at all. It's just going to go in the savings account. And I already have like my, emergency fund and all that kind of stuff. So I'm good in the savings account. Cool. Take that $80 and buy $80 worth of Bitcoin every month. That $80 is going to appreciate faster than any other investment. And I'm talking about over a 4 to 8 year cycle. Bitcoin, there's a statistic, because every 4 years, Bitcoin, the incoming supply gets cut in half.
Mm-hmm.
We can go more into that too. You probably touched on it in the book. But anybody that's bought Bitcoin and has held it for 4 years or more, there's nobody that's lost value on it yet. So we've been through 3 or 4 of these halving cycles. It's always a price catalyst up. So if you ever like looked at the Bitcoin price chart and you're like, it's weird, it like pops up and then it kind of goes back down, but then it pops up and it's kind of like doing a laddering effect, and it's just increasing in value, but then it kind of goes down for a little bit. The things that make it pop back up are that 4 year halving cycle. And that next 4 year halving cycle, when Bitcoin's daily incoming supply gets cut in half, is in 2024. So we're a couple of years out right now. So the prices may stay down and depressed for another year or two. Like, that's very possible, which means it's a great buying opportunity, man. Again, for every dollar you put in, you could see a potential, significant return on that. And that's history set, showing us that so far. So yeah, I think dollar cost averaging is the strategy to go with. Pick an amount of money that's not gonna, eat into your monthly budget. That's not gonna make it so you don't have to, worry about your kids, if they're gonna skip a meal, that sort of thing. If it's extra money, put that a little bit of extra money that you can go without, and just buy some sats. In Bitcoin, we call it stacking sats. you stack sats, and it's pretty satisfying.
Yeah. Huh. Man, I'm sold. No, so okay, I actually have another question, right? Something that I kind of, you broke it down very well, right? So, and I understand the cycle, and it's a volatile industry, right? I get that. My question is, okay, so right now, people who are mining, it's big organizations, right, that are mining Bitcoin, right? It's like a massive they're generating massive amounts of power in order to process this, right? Well, once the last one comes through, what happens to those companies? Like, what happens to Bitcoin?
That's a great question. So first of all, it's not going to happen in yours or my lifetime. So that doesn't happen until 2140.
I see.
Which is crazy. So without getting off topic, you can tell I get off topic all the time. I just get excited about this stuff. That halving cycle. So Bitcoin's been around for what, like 14, 15 years now. In 14 years, we've already minted 19 million out of the 21 million coins. But because the supply keeps going down over time, the last 2 million coins, it's going to take about 100 years or 120 years to mine the last 2 million coins. Like, it's wild. Like, if you've ever looked at exponential effects, like how something grows exponentially, cutting something in half is like the exact opposite. It slows it down really, really fast. So yes, the last Bitcoin are not going to be mined until 2140, but that actually doesn't matter. Bitcoin will still continue to operate after that point, because when you send a Bitcoin transaction on chain, I'll explain what that means in a second. But when you send a Bitcoin transaction, you can elect to pay a fee with it. You can send your transaction without a fee. It just might take a little bit longer. The miners, when they try to decide which transactions to put in the next block, if there's a lot of people that want to get their transaction in the next block, then the miners are going to take the people that paid the highest fee. There's like a bidding structure for it. So if I don't care when my transaction gets there, like if I'm like, oh, I'm going to send you money, but I don't care if it gets there, in 2 hours or something like that, I might send it for free, and then it'll just get added to a block eventually. Or I could pay a really, really small fee, and it's going to get added, but there's a fee structure. Now, what's different from this, because people say, oh, well, how's that any different than like Visa and MasterCard? Visa and MasterCard, they charge a fee, and Bitcoiners are always talking about, taking out the middleman and all that kind of stuff. Well, with Bitcoin, with Visa and MasterCard, they set the fee. If you want to swipe a Visa and MasterCard, like it's going to be 3% plus like an extra 6 cents on every transaction, that sort of thing. They set it. And they've actually been sued. Visa and MasterCard, I was part of a class action lawsuit like 10 years ago for our business. They actually colluded. They formed a cartel, and they were setting. they're supposed to compete against each other. Like it was anti-monopoly, it was antitrust. Like they were supposed to compete against each other. That keeps interest rates, or that keeps fees low. But they both said, why would we compete against each other? Like let's just set the fees at 3%. Highly illegal. They weren't supposed to do that, and they got sued for several $1 billion. They still probably made more money on the racket than they paid out.
Yeah,
but. With Bitcoin, it's different. You and me, we get to determine the fee, and we get to say, oh, okay, I'm going to pay a big fee. Like if I'm sending $1 billion, I don't have $1 billion right now. It's, I've got to move some money around. It's not, I don't have it in the account, whatever, that sort of thing. But if I was sending $1 billion, I might put in like a $6 transaction fee, cause like I want it to go through kind of fast, and $6 is not a very big percentage of $1 billion.
Yeah.
But my transaction is going to get there really fast if I'm going to pay $6 for it. But if I'm buying a $5 cup of coffee, I don't want to pay $6 for my $5 cup of coffee. I'm paying $11 now for the cup of coffee. Like that doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. And so there's certain things that make sense for Bitcoin on chain. Bitcoin on chain, very safe, very secure, but can be a bit slow for merchant types of transactions. If I'm sending $1 billion and I don't care if it gets there in 20 minutes, like that's really fast. Like if I'm going to send a large sum of money, or even $1,000, like if I'm wiring $1,000 to my aunt across the country, it can take, like several days. It can take 48 hours, 96 hours. If I'm sending internationally, their website says it can take up to 2 weeks to send a wire transfer, and they're going to charge as much as like 25%. Like if you remit money back to El Salvador, if you work here and you're sending money back to your family in El Salvador, it's 25% fees, and you're going to have to wait 2 weeks. With Bitcoin, you might have to wait 40 minutes and you pay, I don't know, $1.20. It's like nothing compared to it. But people say, well, not everybody, in America, we're not just sending money back home. Like I don't want to pay $1.20 transaction fee when I'm buying something for $5. Like that's a high percentage. So there's something. Have you ever heard of the Lightning Network? Have you crossed that? Okay. So there's the Bitcoin, like the base protocol, which is like the foundation. Like it's firm, it's secure. It's like, it's the concrete, it's the bedrock of the protocol. And then the next thing above it is called a layer 2. It's the Lightning Network. And do you have your phone with you right now? Okay. So do you have a space to download an app?
Sure.
Okay. You don't have to put your information in or anything like that. So it's not like one of those. So it's called, there's a bunch of different Lightning wallets. Like you can use, there's like dozens of them, but I like to use one called, if you go in the App Store, it's called Wallet of Satoshi. So yeah, that's like the number one concern is people go, I'm going into a store. I don't want to wait for 10 minutes for my payment to go through,
Right.
So that's rightfully so. Like they don't want a slow process. So Bitcoin's very secure, very safe, but can be a little bit slow for merchant transactions. So they built this other protocol on top of it. It's like super fast and essentially free. And so you're gonna be stoked on this when we send you a payment here. It's like you can talk about Bitcoin and you can get into the theory about Bitcoin and all that kind of stuff. But then sometimes when you just like send and receive it, it's like the first time you ever send an email. Like you don't have to understand how SMTP servers work. I don't understand the protocol that works under email. All I know is I type something up, I hit send, and then somebody receives the message on the other side. So, okay. So is the wallet downloaded?
It says, wallet Satoshi, welcome to the world's simplest Bitcoin. So start.
Yep. Hit start.
There we go.
So yeah, you're not going to enter any personal information. Like people that go to Coinbase or exchanges, you have to take a picture of your driver's license, all this kind of stuff. But this is totally self-sovereign. So you're totally in control of this wallet. Nobody knows you have it. It's just software that runs on your phone.
I see.
You could be in Afghanistan right now. You could be in Russia. You could be under like the most sanctioned country right now. And we're just going to use software and mathematics to send value from one wallet to the other. Okay. So if you go in there, if you hit the receive button at the bottom.
Yeah.
So hit receive. And then on the top right, it just says lightning address.
Yep.
And then it should just show like a QR code.
It does.
Okay, hold that up to the screen. Let me see. Make sure my camera's working all right here. Okay. Got it. So I'm going to show you here on my camera. So like okay, boom. I got the image here. I'm putting in my phone and I'm going to type in, it's like send you sort of balling here. 100,000 sats. It's not that crazy. It's like 17 bucks.
Yeah.
Dude, but check this out. Okay.
Cool.
Okay. So it looks cool though, right?
Yeah.
Like that sats means something. Okay. So I'm going to hit send. Oh, I have to hit pay. Sorry. I've never done it looking into the camera like that. Okay. I just sent it.
Oh, shit.
Boom. Right on the other end.
Yeah.
That was the transaction fee for that. 0 sats. We didn't even pay a tenth of a penny for that. We just used mathematics to send value at the speed of light from one corner of the world to the other. No intermediaries. We didn't ask permission from anybody. Like you could be, I don't want to make Bitcoin sound like it's a bunch of outlaws. You could be like running from the law right now, or, you could be, like you could be a freedom fighter, like you could be a Canadian trucker right now.
Right.
Right. And you could need some gas money and I could have sent you those sats. Even though the government said that, like, if I send you money that I'm, encouraging terrorism or something like that.
Of course.
So all that stuff, like that's Bitcoin right there. Like that's just, it's like me handing you cash through the internet, basically, is what that was. So yeah, that's the Lightning Network. So all the things I said about Bitcoin and the fee structure and all that kind of stuff, really important because we can send, like a 10-minute transaction across the Bitcoin payment layer. And, that's still better than the old system, but we have this really fast add-on. It's like a hack on top of Bitcoin that has the same security and all that kind of stuff of Bitcoin. Now, at the end of the day, your question. I go in these wild tangents.
Dude, I got 100,000 sats off the beaten path.
I paid you off just to so you're in the Bitcoin game now, but your question was, what happens after 2140 when the miners don't get a Bitcoin reward anymore? They get the fees from the transaction. So every block will have thousands of transactions in it, and there'll be thousands or millions of satoshis in each block of those transactions. And by that time, I honestly believe that many satoshis will probably be the equivalent of every block being worth millions of dollars. And so even though there's not a block reward, there's a fee reward. The consumer, the people sending Bitcoin, are paying very, very small fees, each person, but the aggregation of them all, the miners are getting a pretty good payout.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Huh.
Yeah.
But the landscape of the industry shifts a little bit. I mean, this is beyond our time, but this would be, we are essentially passing off the buck of the issue onto the next generation.
They can deal with it later.
Yeah.
So, but here's the cool thing. So say that Bitcoin, right now we have companies all over the world mining Bitcoin and stuff like that. When Bitcoin started out, it was just one guy with a computer and then a few guys with a computer that were mining it. And like, you could just do it with your desktop computer because it's all about competition. Like if all the miners went away right now, me and you could start using the computers that we're on to mine Bitcoin. Bitcoin wouldn't be very secure because you just need more computing power than our desktop computers. But there's this thing called the difficulty adjustment. And what that means is every 2 weeks, the Bitcoin algorithm assesses how many computers are trying to mine Bitcoin. And if it's more computers, then it makes the finding a block. And I can explain how finding a block works in kind of simple terms, but finding a block if there's a lot of computers on the network, it will make it more difficult to find a block. And if all the computers go away and there's less computers mining Bitcoin, it will make it less difficult to find a block. And so if it becomes unprofitable, there's really kind of a capitalistic type of thing at the core. If it becomes less profitable for miners, if a block doesn't have a lot of fees in it and stuff like that, then miners will back off. But there's always going to be somebody willing to mine Bitcoin because there's still money involved. And so there's always going to be an equilibrium of profitability. But on that note, have you dug into, most people don't, I know a lot of Bitcoiners that don't really know how the mining works, because they hear things like it's a really complicated cryptographic puzzle, and then they just tune out.
Right.
But have you dug into like how the Bitcoin mining
No,
works
but
or anything like
I'm
that?
really interested in that, you know.
So to make it super simple, and you can get into cryptography and stuff like that
Mhm.
if you're really interested in it, but in kind of layman's terms, how do you encourage, like, the reason why Bitcoin mining exists is, how do you encourage people that don't know each other to run software to process transactions for your network? Like, I want, imagine I'm imagining a payments network, and I want people all over the world to run it on their computers. Well, why would they take the time to run it on their computers? Because there needs to be something in it for them.
There has to
So
be an incentive, yeah.
there's an incentive. Every 10 minutes, there's a block reward. So if you if you lend your computer to the network voluntarily, you can take it off at any time. But if you lend your computing power to the network, you have a chance to figure out something called the nonce. Every 10 minutes, there's this thing called the nonce. You're hunting for the nonce. And all that is every 10 minutes, there's a giant number, and it's all the computers are just playing a giant game of pick a number between 1 and 10, but it's a really, really big number. And so at the end of the 10 minutes, the next 10 minutes starts, and all the computers is like ready, set, go. And they do something, it's called, you can think of it like brute force hacking. Like, I don't know if you've ever thought about how, like, people hack websites. Like, if somebody tries to get your, go to your Wells Fargo account and they try to hack your password. Well, there's a type of hacking called brute force attack. Like, they don't know your password, but they're just going to try so many different combinations of letters and numbers that eventually they will get it, right? It might take a really long time. It might not take a really long time. That's essentially what these computers are doing. They're brute force hacking. There's a giant number out there somewhere, and all the computers are just guessing. Once one of the computers finally guesses the number, they get the privilege to mine the next block of Bitcoin. They get the block reward. So it's called proof of work. And you're only going to win that race if you've supplied a considerable amount of computing power to the network, right? Like, we don't want, like, if I'm mining Bitcoin from my home computer, I'm not really adding a lot of computing power. So I have very little chance to find the nonce, to find that number,
Right.
because I'm not really doing much for the network. But if you have a warehouse full of computers and you're providing a lot of security for the network and a lot of hash power for the network, you're basically driving a faster car in the race. You're able to guess more numbers per second, and that increases your chance to guess that number that's out there. So that's essentially how it works.
Are there people that come up with new algorithms essentially to expedite the process? Like, are there people trying to, like, crack the algorithm to the best possible software to use to mine?
Yeah, so it's really not about software, it's about hardware. So
Right,
the
okay.
Bitcoin miners, they get upgraded probably every 2 or 3 years. So they're called ASICs. It's like application specific integrated circuits. It's a type of computer. It looks like a brick, and all it does is guess numbers really fast. And so the mining rigs that were really expensive and really prestigious like 3 or 4 years ago, those ones, you can still run them. You can still guess a lot of numbers with them, but they're just not going to be as fast as the new mining rigs. So newer mining rigs, I mean, that industry is constantly evolving, and people are constantly, it's essentially like war. Like, they're fighting, they're competing to supply the most hash power. But this is what's cool about it. Those people, those miners that are buying new computers at their own expense, they're enriching the Bitcoin ecosystem. Like, my Bitcoin is being secured by better and better computers of people I have no idea who they are, because they have a financial incentive. I don't have to trust in their altruism. I don't have to trust that they're going to do the right thing, right? With the Federal Reserve, I have to trust that Jerome Powell is going to do the right thing with, US dollars and that sort of thing. I don't trust in people's altruism. People, even good people, mess up from time to time, and let alone bad people, like let alone the scammers and stuff. But the way Bitcoin's structured is that the miner's self-interest aligns with my self-interest. And so that's the only kind of system that you can ever really count on, is like, well, I trust, like, that's why driving on the freeway works, right? Like, people have accidents every once in a while for sure, but why can I drive 80 miles an hour, right? Just 2 or 3 feet away, maybe, 4 or 5 feet away from somebody else that's driving 80 or 90 miles an hour. That's insane. Like, that's crazy. The only reason that works is because I want to get home to my family and that guy wants to get home to his family. And so we can drive at high rates of speed because our incentives are aligned. It's the same thing with mining and holding Bitcoin. I get to have all the benefits of this like really expensive computer equipment that's securing my Bitcoin. And these guys are fighting over it. They're trying to fight over who can secure the Bitcoin network better, because the better they secure it, the more blocks that they get to mine.
And in the community, do like big miners, are they hush hush? Is it something that's not like discussed?
Yeah, I mean, these guys, like, I mean, there's a lot of competition going on amongst the miners. There's miners that are super under the radar, right? Like they like, we probably don't even know a lot of the miners that exist. Like, we just know they're out there because we see that there's all this hash power, but we don't know where they are because they want to kind of be anonymous. There's miners that are publicly traded companies, and so they're trying to get investors and stuff like that. I'm doing an interview next week with the founder of his company's called Sat Mining, and they do 100% renewable energy mining and stuff. So like, everybody has kind of a different angle. And there's some really, really interesting components. I have a section in my book called Green Bitcoin. One of the number one accusations against Bitcoin is that it consumes so much power and so much energy that it's causing global warming. Like, it's causing the planet to heat up. And it does. It takes a lot of energy. But there's some really interesting, like, compelling points about why Bitcoin is actually the solution to our renewable energy. So I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit, but have you come across that? Have you come across that argument at all about Bitcoin causing global warming, that sort of thing?
Oh, I've heard it. I've heard especially coming out, global warming being a big topic, just graduating, from SDSU civil engineering, and I work with the environmental engineers, and I had no idea that you just said there's a company that is focusing on how I guess my question is, how does Bitcoin play a role in that, in renewable energy?
Yeah, it's really exciting, honestly. Like, so I put this tweet out there, I don't know, like a couple months ago, and I did it to fire up some of my more liberal friends, because that's like the number one thing why liberals don't like Bitcoin is because Senator Elizabeth Warren, she goes that, Bitcoin's gonna I think that the World Economic Forum released something in 2017 that they said by 2022 that Bitcoin will use 100% of the world's energy. And like, how does that even work? Like, so we're just gonna turn off, like, no, you cannot cook your food because we need to mine Bitcoin. Like, it was just so stupid. But there's people that have a really a deep financial interest in Bitcoin not working out because it upends the status quo. And it's really like money of the people. And so I think the elites, they don't like that. They don't like what Bitcoin's all about. It's really like the democratization of money. It's like, it's the most fair form of money we ever had. But to that point, the tweet I put out was, I said, Bitcoin emits the exact same amount of carbon as a Tesla does. And then I said, and I tagged one of my liberal friends. I'm like, what do you think about that?
Yeah.
And, his brain exploded. He's like, no, because I've heard that Bitcoin, it's a polluter. And it's like, man, how much carbon does your phone emit right now? How much carbon does your PC emit right now? Like, do you think Bitcoin miners just have like these smokestacks with like smoke and pollution?
A lot of them think that. A lot of them think that. Have you asked them about
100%.
Have you asked them what an AK-47 stands for?
Dude, I don't know if I could have that conversation with them. They would think I'm a Nazi or something. I don't know, dude. It's crazy. Certain conversations, but yeah, man. So people think they've heard that Bitcoin mining is really polluting, but they're computers. They're just computers. Now the problem is, like, this is what they're not saying this, but what I think they mean to say is that yes, those computers do require a lot of energy. And so if I'm hooked up to fossil fuels, then my fuel source, I'm requiring more fossil fuels to then power my Bitcoin miners. But the thing is, there was a report put out a couple of years ago by ARK Invest. It's a big hedge fund, and they did an assessment of all industries, not Bitcoin. So like banking, automotive industries, food, groceries, all that kind of stuff. All industries have, on average, use about 20% renewable energy. Like, okay, like not the majority. Most places don't. We understand that. They did an assessment of Bitcoin mining. Bitcoin miners use about 60% renewable energy, way, way higher than the average.
Oh, wow.
The reason being is because Bitcoin miners, it's geography independent. The reason why it's hard to use solar everywhere or wind everywhere is because your grocery store might not be where it's very sunny, or it might not be where it's very windy. But Bitcoin miners, all they need is a Wi-Fi signal or a satellite signal and power, and they can go anywhere. So they can go out to the middle of the desert where sun is plentiful, and they can get plenty of solar energy. They can go out to a place where it's really windy, where you couldn't put a store there. You can't put a bank there, but there's untapped energy that Bitcoin can use. And so Bitcoin miners love that because they're getting free energy. Like if I'm paying to run these miners, one of my expenses is energy. So I'm going to get the cheapest or free energy that's going to give me a competitive advantage to make my business as profitable as possible. And here's one of the other things of why actually not only does Bitcoin use more green energy, but why Bitcoin's actually maybe potentially the solution to kind of building proper financial incentives for green grids. So like in Texas, I don't know if you heard the story in Texas from a year or two ago about the wind, like the windmills were freezing over. And so people were like freezing to death in Texas.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So you heard about that. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you switch over to renewable energy, it's very spotty. It's not very reliable. Like people literally died, and people, froze, but didn't die and got sick and all that kind of stuff because of unreliable energy grids. And so, not only were those windmills, they weren't really kind of like built up to the standard what they should have been built out to, but those energy grids, they usually make them smaller than they need to be. And kind of let me give the example of that. So imagine you have a town and you need 100 megawatts of energy on average. Like your town, from your normal like processes, when your people are running air conditioning and their food and all that kind of stuff, you need 100 megawatts of energy. So what solar companies will do is they'll build out a grid or a power panel that's 100 megawatts. It can produce 100 megawatts of energy at any given time. But what happens when you go through a heat wave? And now all of a sudden, instead of 100 megawatts of energy, you need 150 megawatts of energy, right? Like you need 50% more than you need on average.
Right.
Well, your grid is only built out for 100 megawatts of energy, right? And so you need 50% more. Well, you're just out of luck. Like you're either going to need to burn fossil fuels, or you're going to need to, freeze to death or starve to death or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So Bitcoin actually financially incentivizes grids to be built out to 150 megawatts, because what your town can do, if you only need 100 megawatts on average and you build it out for 150 megawatts, which is really expensive to do, but what you can do with that extra 50 megawatts is you can turn on Bitcoin miners. And so your extra 50 megawatts is earning your town money. It's actually making money with your excess energy. And then when your town goes through a heat wave and it needs that extra energy, you just turn the Bitcoin miners off, use the extra energy that you have. When the heat wave goes away, you turn the Bitcoin miners back on, and now all of a sudden your town's making money again. So it's actually the key to unlocking energy. Like we can't store that extra energy, right? Like when we have a solar grid that produces extra energy, we don't have great batteries. And so it just goes to waste. Like we just don't use it. But you can capture that financially with Bitcoin, and then use the energy when you need it, if you have a surge of demand or something like that.
Yeah, this is really what is really intriguing me the most about Bitcoin, is just its potential. I feel like there's a lot that can be done with it that hasn't even been touched yet. And it's exciting.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah. That's cool, man. So I had a question for you. So did you hear about how I think it was just announced today or maybe yesterday but I think it's MasterCard, Wells Fargo. I'm trying to read the thing right now. Citigroup, and then it says the headline says MasterCard, Wells Fargo, Citigroup, and others are set to launch a 12-week experimental digital dollar pilot with the New York Federal Reserve. I don't know if you've heard about that or if this is where the first time you're hearing about that, but like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, the U.S. seems like they're getting after developing their own cryptocurrency. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's interesting, right? If we look back to the 1700s when we wanted our independence, right? If you do your research and look at the Federalist and the Anti-Federalist, it seems like the Anti-Federalists were the ones who were against the Constitution. They seem to be more of the conservative type. They didn't want a government. They just fought a tyrannical government, and they didn't want to deal with it. And the Federalists, who did want a constitution, seemed to be more of like, the liberal type of our society. And I try to think back, because I'm a patriot, man. I believe in freedom. I lean more right, I think, because I was a Marine. I went to war. I think I lean more right with certain ideologies, but I'm center, and I'm very cautious of government control. I think COVID opened a lot of our eyes, a lot of people's eyes. Like we talked about how, like the homeschooling thing, like my wife and I joked about it, but like the vaccine was a big thing for us, or like they're not about to force this on me and my family. They're not doing that, but when the kids came home and I had to help my daughter with homework and I saw how like little curriculum it was, I just felt like, man, school has been kind of pointless. The kids go there for how long and learn this much? You learn this in a day. We were done with our homework every day, like by 9 a.m., And I don't know. There was a lot of things that opened my eyes, and I want to be careful where I spend my money. I'm not happy with like my government right now, but I'm a patriot, I'm a proud American, and this has been kind of very interesting as I'm reading about Bitcoin and where it goes. And that's another question that like is concerning, where, you have right now, we have politicians, well, based off of what you just said, obviously it's kind of been, the needle's been moved a little further, but I know a couple years ago, politicians were still saying that Bitcoin's like a joke. Oh, we don't need to worry about it. And maybe that's a good thing for Bitcoin. There's little government regulation and intervention. And, like, is Bitcoin taxed right now? Like, I know in China, like that was a big thing. China, there's a lot of countries who are very anti-Bitcoin, and it's so obvious because they're a dictatorship and they don't have control, and they don't like that. So I guess I brought it all the way around because I'm a patriot. I believe in the Constitution and rights, and I think that people are inherently good. They want to be good, and I think our government is not an exception to that. But it seems like their involvement a little bit would help. But I also know our government, and I know that their involvement would also mean a little bit of corruption and the powers kind of shift. But I think as our politicians learn about Bitcoin, like I was inspired to do, I think they realize that it's not something that they thought it was. You don't have any control of it. You don't have a say. You're not in control. All the people are in control. I mean, that's what Bitcoin is. That's what the blockchain is. Like you've explaining, it's the ones who are invested in it are the ones who have the say. Yeah. Nobody else.
Right.
And even then, the say is limited. When something goes on the blockchain, it's on there. You can't undo it or reverse it or anything like that. So maybe, and this is just the first thought, this is the first time I heard you say this. So I think maybe the government is, instead of originally they thought that this would be something we could kind of just, it'll kill itself. And then they thought like, oh, we got to take this over. And now they realize that they can't. So the only way to stay in the game is to produce a competitor.
Hmm.
And just off first thought, that's what it seems like to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, I think it's insightful. I think that, yeah, you're right. That is there's a saying about adoption of new technology. It's first they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. And so I mean, it's just the process we're seeing. You're totally right. They made fun of it. It's a Ponzi scheme. It's for nerds. It's for whatever. And then it's, it's here and it's real. And all right, now we're going to fight it. Now it's like, they're kind of in the phase where I think the digital dollar is kind of fighting Bitcoin, but they're taking a different approach than China. Like China's like, we're banning it. And that was one of the things I said in the book too, was like, because people ask that all the time, will the government ban Bitcoin? I said, well, let's look at China. Like I think we would all agree that China is much more tyrannical or dictatorial than the United States. And they just have a lot more tools at their disposal. Like they have a lot more surveillance. They have a lot more AI that they use to police their people. They've had to ban Bitcoin. I believe it's 8 times already. Like if they could ban it, they would ban it 1 time, right? Like why have they banned it 8 times? Because they need to, like, hey guys, we told you, like, don't mess with Bitcoin, like stop it, And so it's just funny that they have to keep banning it and keep banning it. It's like even the most overreaching government on our planet, or maybe the biggest overreaching government, because North Korea is probably more overreaching, but they can't snuff it out. Like it's still alive and well in China. There's people that use Lightning Network just like we just used right now, because the government really can't stop that. Like what would the government have to do? I mean, if me and you aren't broadcasting this over the internet right now, like nobody would have known we had that transaction. Like there's a lot of privacy to that. But yeah, I think the U.S. is realizing that there's a lot of benefits that come with a digital currency, and there's some of them are gonna, it's important to know what the government's gonna say about how great they are. They're going to talk about how it's going to be easier to get your stimulus payment. The next time a crisis happens, it's going to be there in 4 hours and it's going to be in your account. It's going to be there to spend
this is so interesting to me and that's why I brought up the Federalists and the anti-Federalists, is because how the tides shift with times and evolution. It's like the government that was anti cryptocurrency is now going to be pro cryptocurrency, and you're going to see a shift of people who were pro Bitcoin and then anti. It's so interesting to see, and who knows how it's gonna evolve, But what was interesting to me, what's sticking out in my mind, is how you said if something comes out that's good enough, it'll be put on the blockchain. So like at the end of the day, Bitcoin is still the grandfather, is still the one to be attached to. It's the one to be with, and like it's interesting. It's interesting. I mean, we'll see where it goes and how things evolve. But I think this is definitely something that I'm gonna keep. Okay, what can I read, like magazine wise? What are the magazines that stay on top of like? I want to stay on top of like blockchain technology and things that are where's the innovation at and stuff like that.
I mean, there's a lot of good podcasts out there. I think the What is Money podcast is by Robert Breedlove. It's called, it's just What is Money. I watched it on YouTube. I'm sure it's on other places where you get podcasts and stuff. But he talks about Bitcoin and the market as like from a very academic sense. So if you want a really sophisticated take on it, I think it's really important to have those takes. I say with me and my book and the way I explain things, I'm like a caveman trying to talk about something complicated to another caveman. Like that's just how I think of it. I'm not super, sophisticated, articulate. Like I'm not going to draw on, this, some like academic nuance or something like that. I'm just going to talk about what it means in real world terms. But I think it's important to listen to those guys. So yeah, Robert Breedlove, What is Money is a good one. Preston Pish, it's PS. YH is the last name. Again, another one. So those are a couple good podcasts to listen to and kind of get cracking with it. But as far as reading, Bitcoin Magazine, great website. They actually have a magazine too. So it's just bitcoinmagazine.com. So like if you like the hard copy, I think I got.
I do. So I'm more of like I like
have
hard
a nice
copy.
Oh dude, it's a nice read. It's like good quality. So you feel like you're getting some extra value. But they they have really good articles about, again, ways that this stuff's being implemented in the real world. How are countries using it? How are people using it to, and this is a crazy thing, on both sides of the Ukraine-Russian conflict, like Ukrainians using Bitcoin to flee from Ukraine to go to Poland, like took their entire net worth with them because they remembered a seed phrase in their head and they could just pack up their wealth with them. Like, boom, like you can take it across countries and across, jurisdictions and all sorts of stuff. Then people in Russia, same thing. Like when the US sanctions, and you might, whatever side of the war you can take, like you take on this thing, people on both sides of the conflict were using it. And we've never seen something like that before, where something that's just like a tool that it doesn't matter what your political affiliation is or your religion or your race or anything like that. Like there's nobody that can tell you to stop using it. So while some people don't like that, they're like, oh, I don't support Russia. I can't believe Russians were using Bitcoin. I'm like, yeah, you might not like that, but that shows how powerful this is. Like the US is the most powerful country on the planet. We just sanctioned all of Russia's financial assets. Like we sanctioned them with SWIFT. Like they can't do international money transfers. Like Spotify turned off Spotify and podcasts to people in Russia. Like they're punishing the Russian people. And the payment apps that were in Russia, people couldn't send funds. There wasn't Venmo, but there's some
interesting. But isn't it interesting how I don't know, our government does things like that, and if you really follow it, it affects just people who have nothing to do with this.
Yeah. Right. And, it's not Putin that's getting his money censored. It's the people.
Yeah.
So it's at the end of the day, it's like people on both sides, the average Joe, are able to kind of like stand up to some of this, whether you want to call it censorship or tyranny or whatever it is. Like it's giving the small guy, a tool that just didn't exist in human history. It's something we didn't have. So I think it's really, really exciting in that regard. But yeah, I would just start with that Bitcoin Magazine, those podcasts. And then, you can venture out. I think it's important to study other cryptocurrencies, but I think it's really important to grasp Bitcoin first, like have people get really dialed in, get really sold on it being the fix for sound money, because there's other things. You're going to hear people talk about how Ethereum, it's deflationary and it's going to appreciate by X amount. And it's like,
I work for a guy who mines, and I want to say he mines Ethereum.
Okay.
Well,
I work popular one to mine. Yeah. Yeah, it can
he's got a bunch of, he keeps a little thing on his hip. He's like all into it. Yeah, that guy he's all about it. And I don't know what else he does, but he goes on vacation a lot, so it must be working out well for him.
Yeah, and there's money to be made in speculating and trading and things like that. But for every person that does that, everybody gets tempted to day trading. The only time I've ever lost money in Bitcoin or crypto was when I started to day trade it. So I'd be very careful. I started buying Bitcoin back in 2014. I've never sold a Bitcoin. Like I've never sold my assets. Like I dollar cost average. I buy a little bit every month, and I see my net worth grow. I see my value grow. Like people say, oh man, aren't you disappointed because Bitcoin was at 69,000 and now it's 16,000? Like you got to be sweating bullets. I'm like, dude, I'm not bragging here. This is going to be everybody's story. Like everybody jumps in at a different point. And the people that buy it at 16,000 now are going to brag to people when it's $300,000 a coin. When it crashes back to 300,000 from 900,000, people are going to be like, I was buying at 16,000, so I'm good. For me, I was buying my first Bitcoins at $250 a pop. So I'm not tripping that the market crashed because my 250 to 16 grand is looking pretty good. And we had 1% of the world has adopted Bitcoin and it's gotten to $16,000. There's 99% of the world left to adopt Bitcoin. What does that do to the price? What does that do to your buying power when Bitcoin's at 50%, 60%? So now still people think, oh man, I'm late because it's 16,000. We are so early. We're the early adopters right now. And we're fortunate enough to be in a developed nation where we can spread this information very freely and stuff, and we can find out about it. So I think the best thing people can do to transform, like generationally transform wealth, you see these crossroads in history. Like there's things like the invention of the printing press, the invention of the internet, the invention of different technologies where there's a paradigm shift, society changes, and the people, like the oil industry, like there's people that were dirt poor. They took, the money they had and they bought oiling equipment, and they got oil, like they got into the oil industry. they became the elite class of the next generation. They completely changed the wealth outlook of their family because they just took the time to learn about something. And you don't have to, like I said, go in, I gotta dive in with, $2,500 or $10,000 or something like that. It's just like, just be disciplined and doing the small things. 25 bucks a month, dude. Like that's enough for people to get started and to start getting down that path of wealth transformation for their kids and their grandkids and stuff like that.
Yeah. Hey, I want to leave you with this because before I read a single thing about Bitcoin, I only knew from the little clips I'd see on Facebook and Instagram and things like that, right? And do you know Dan Pena?
Yeah.
Okay. He has a famous video. I don't know where he stands on Bitcoin now or whatever, but there's a video that I saw that he said, you know who's behind Bitcoin? It's Putin. And when everyone finds out, it's going to come all crashing down. And I remember, because I take him serious. I like Dan Pena. I read his book and I was like, whoa. And then, but after just reading one book that explains how Bitcoin works, it's like, this guy doesn't understand it at all. He doesn't understand it at all. So it's, I don't know, man. It's interesting because the moguls of yesterday are very critical of this right now. And the fact that it's being talked about is just what's kind of piqued my interest is everybody's talking about it. And I realized I knew nothing about it and I wanted to change that. And we'll see, man. I'm going to keep reading and doing research. I mean, I'm definitely sold on Bitcoin. I think the blockchain technology is the greatest advancement possibly ever created. And we just don't even understand that yet. Just reading about it and just the freedom that the system provides. It's a system that's self-regulating and nobody has, it's its own thing. And I'm excited to see where it goes and keep track.
Yeah, man, it is really exciting. And I feel like we're going to have some more of these conversations because, man, I really enjoyed this. And I love it. I mean, like you said, you're new to it, but I can tell you've done some reading, you've done some homework, you thought through it. I think maybe some people just kind of, they take whatever they've been told or take whatever they hear. You're very analytical. I can see in the way that you're processing this and even the way you're, asking questions based on my answers and stuff like that. So I think that we could have some more fun conversations from this. I'll suggest, because what you said when we were talking about old technologies and, all that kind of stuff, the first chapter of my book is called Resistance to Adoption. And I go through some historical precedents of other technologies that, and to see the parallels between the adoption of the internet and what we're going through right now, the adoption of electricity and what we're going through right now, and things that it's ubiquitous, things that are everywhere right now. We're all in lighted rooms. There was a time when there was like nut jobs that were the ones like, yeah, electricity is going to be the future. And everybody that was smart said that they're absolutely stupid. Like that is dumb. It's dangerous and all that kind of stuff. So I put the, if you're, working out or something like that and you want to listen to it, I put the audio from the first chapter of my book on my YouTube channel. So if you just look up my name, on YouTube, it says like chapter 1 of the book. I put it out for free. Just listen through that, man. It'll encourage you.
Dude, like, your listeners are going to hate me. They're like, who the hell is this guy? He gets a one-on-one with Brian and he doesn't even fucking know any of his shit, He doesn't even know any of his stuff, man.
Oh, brother, not at all, man. This is good.
but definitely let's plan again. I'm going to purchase your book. I'm going to read it. And then let me go through your book and come up with some. I know you get that a lot. Are you tired of that? Like,
no, I love it, man.
Okay,
I love it.
Cool.
So fun.
Yeah, let me go through your book and I'm gonna come up with some more questions. And yeah, man. Are you in the area in Temecula?
Yeah, I live in Riverside, but I'm down in Temecula 5 days a week or something like that. So
okay.
Yeah. So yeah, man. If you ever
we should get together sometime. Yeah. We could do some just bullshitting in person too.
Cool. Yeah, that'd be fun. I would love it. So I was thinking about this earlier. What's the cliffhanger that I'm going to leave people on for the episode? And I don't want you to answer the question right now. So you said you're going to read the book. We'll schedule it for after you read the book. The best conversations I have, I hope that there's lots of things you agree with in the books. I hope I make some good points, but I want you to come up with like 1 or 2 things that you're going to push back on. Like those are the best conversations when you're just like, dude, I'm not buying this or whatever. And even if like you just want to play devil's advocate, just like that'd be fun. Yeah. But to spice it up a little bit, I'm going to ask you this question right now. Don't answer it right now though. If we fought again, who would win. So
Okay.
all right, brother. So
I like it.
I'm gonna leave everybody on the cliffhanger right there. Danny, pleasure, man. Dude, it was so good catching up with you, man. I feel like I've gotten to know you a lot in just a little bit of time, and we've shared some special moments. And God bless you and your family. And we'll talk again soon.
Same to you, man. I can't wait. Let's get together soon.
Heck yeah, brother. All right, man.
All right, man.
You have a
Thanks
good
for
night.
having me, dude. Thank you.
Anytime.
I'm excited.
Later. Have a good night.
Later.